on the registry, why have a registry of these firearms?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand, because what you want to do is prevent people from purchasing assault weapons in the state, and you want to make sure that you know where those very, very deadly weapons are, who owns them, when and if a crime is committed with one of them.
Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday, question I asked him about why a gun registry is necessary. And I tell you, the question why does not get asked nearly enough. You'll hear some of the questions that members of the media ask the governor. Questions like, are you confident? Or are you concerned? These are typically, close-ended questions, yes or no questions, to really kind of get at the motive. Why is a pretty powerful question, and you can kind of hear that in when I asked the governor why have a registry, his response. Welcome back. It is Bishop on Air. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for hanging out. You can find me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air, and we can connect that way. But yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker, earlier in the day, went at one event, and during the Q&A, off topic, somebody asked a question. The governor reiterated for people who may have not heard the question in its entirety.
Everybody, I think the question was, how is our development of broadband going to help people in rural areas who are trying to register the assault weapons that is a requirement by January 1. I guess I'd say, there's no way we can accelerate the broadband development fast enough for people who don't have it now and can't connect to the internet today. And certainly January 1 coming up in just, 15 days, 14 days? 16 days. But I will say that we want to make it easier for people to connect to everything with broadband. I mean, it's got to be faster than what many people have in rural areas today. There is I'll put quotes around it, broadband in rural areas. But the truth is that the capability of connecting to the internet in much of the nation has really accelerated. And what we used to say was high speed is slower than what really is high speed today. So we are doing everything we can to make it easier for people in rural areas to use the internet. I guess if you want me to answer the other part of the question, I mean, people have the ability to register without going online, although going to your library, going to a local school, places that have a broadband internet connection, if you don't have a connection or a computer at home, is another way for people to make sure that they're doing what's required by the law.
So again, the governor was asked, how should people who are in rural areas that don't have internet, how are they supposed to register their firearms by January 1st? Because the event that the governor went to was focused on expanding broadband. But again, the question was, how are people in rural areas supposed to register by January 1st their, quote, assault weapons, notifying Illinois State Police that they are in possession of these banned firearms and attachments? How is, the rural community supposed to do that? The governor says, go to the local library, go to a public place that allows for internet, and, you can do it that way. You've also got kiosks. He didn't mention the kiosks, but you've got kiosks that are set up, 4 of them across the state, where there's 102 counties. You've got 4 kiosks. And I don't think one of those kiosks is in Chicago. So, say somebody doesn't want to, enter their information online, how are they supposed to comply with this law? So that was one question. The governor said, you can't get broadband internet set up fast enough for people now, but hey, they can go to a public school or a library. So then later on in the day, the governor stopped in Springfield at the governor's mansion and had an event where they lit the menorah for Hanukkah. And then he went around the corner at the governor's mansion and had what we call a gaggle. That is when you've got, a news source in the middle and tons of reporters around launching questions, all kinds of questions. Well, I, of course, in attendance asking some questions, but I wasn't the only one. You had a series of reporters and a series of questions about the state's January 1st deadline to register firearms or face criminal penalties, and how the rules for registering firearms still very much unfinished, unclear, and people having concerns about all this. So here's the governor responding to a series of questions, including questions I had about, why have a registry? How can you enforce a law when it's so unclear? And also how the things that are unclear include stuff like airsoft hand grips. So here's the governor and the series of questions that there are.
Are you concerned that maybe this whole process of getting everything implemented in time for January 1st, hasn't gone as smoothly as hoped, or, that there could still be some confusion of people who may not know whether they're in compliance with the law?
Well, let's start with the fact that I expect that we will continue to have the emergency rules in place. That's the case, and up until the final decision by JCAR about the permanent rules, which I expect will be approved, whether it's in January or in February.
How can you enforce a law where there's confusion of the rules, though? You've got this possibly leading to a Class 3 felony, people would lose their rights.
Well, that's an exaggeration that often occurs in right-wing media. The reality is that most people really do understand these rules. And by the way, people are actually signing up, registering their automatic assault weapons, their high-capacity magazines, rather, and as we get closer to it, we're seeing more and more people actually do what they're required to do under the law.
In place right now, an airsoft hand grips can be considered an assault weapon attachment.
Remember that.
I do want to just hold on a sec, because these are the questions that I was asking the governor. And if somebody asked, "Are you confident that this has been done appropriately?" He answered that saying, "Hey, the rules are going to be in place. Don't worry about it." But my follow-up question to that was, how can you enforce a law when the rules haven't been finalized? And the governor, he's done this several times when I've asked questions, including questions about, can you explain your $1 million donation to two Supreme Court justices? He talks about the right wing. He goes off and he talks about the right wing. Again, here's the governor.
Well, that's an exaggeration that often occurs in right-wing media. The reality is that most people really do understand these rules. And by the way, people are actually signing up, registering their automatic assault weapons, their high-capacity magazines, rather, and
something else to highlight here. This is not a automatic gun ban registry. This is a ban on commonly owned firearms. That's the argument that's being used in court right now. It's a ban on commonly owned firearms like semi-automatic rifles, semi-automatic pistols, semi-automatic shotguns, a variety of different types of handguns, if it's got a threaded barrel, if it's got a certain type of attachment. So the governor talks about how people are registering their automatic guns, and he also said magazines. Clearly, Illinois State Police, that's one thing that's clear in the rules. Magazines are not to be registered. So the governor talking about automatic guns and registering magazines. Even somebody in the comments on the video of just the governor's answers to these things, rather fascinating if you want to go through and read some of that, but this just kind of encapsulates it. On X, it is spelt John, says that, I was all confused at first, but now I understand that I would just need to register my automatic assault rifle. I don't have one of those, so all is well in the world again. So, again, the governor talking about people registering their automatic rifles, and what did he also say? The high-speed magazines or high-capacity magazines. Here's the governor.
Actually signing up, registering their automatic assault weapons, their high capacity magazines rather, and as we get closer to it, we're seeing more and more people actually do what they're required to do under the law.
In place right now, an airsoft hand, grips can be considered an assault weapon attachment.
Remember that the permanent rules are coming. There's another meeting of JCAR coming in January. I really expect that there's a widespread understanding of what people need to do, and to the exceptions, I would just argue you'll know the answers over the next month or so. And nobody is getting, charged, arrested. As you know, the first commission of a violation is a misdemeanor if it even gets charged. The second violation, however, is a felony. So I encourage everybody that has an assault weapon to actually go online or otherwise to make sure that they're registering it.
So again, a couple of things here. The governor saying he doesn't think people are going to get even charged with that first offense, and that we'll all know what the final rules are in a month or two. Well, again, January 1st right around the corner. And the law is going to be the law, because we haven't seen court action to try to, block, or at least orders to block the January 1st implementation date of the deadline. But, he says widespread people know what they need to do. But the governor right before that said people are registering automatic firearms and high-speed, high-capacity magazines. You don't have to register your magazines by law, according to the rules that Illinois State Police have. And this isn't a fully automatic ban. People who have fully automatic weapons already register with the ATF, and that's been a law for decades. We're talking about semi-automatic firearms, commonly owned semi-automatic firearms that are banned, and if people don't tell state police, they could face a Class A misdemeanor on the first offense, and the second offense up to a Class 3 felony. So, more from the governor yesterday in Springfield, getting peppered with questions about the gun and magazine ban.
The Seventh Circuit just declined to hear the appeal in bank, which opens the door for them. They're now ready to file for writ of certiorari.
By the way, this was before the news dropped that the U.S. Supreme Court denied the Naperville plaintiffs a preliminary injunction while the case played out. So again, back to the question.
Are you confident that this will survive the current makeup of the U.S. Supreme Court?
And again, we've heard this question. The governor's going to reiterate this. Are you confident? It's a yes or no question. Are you concerned? It's a yes or no question. Can we get to some motive questions, maybe, like the how or the why, or anyways?
I think you've asked me this question at least 9 times since we passed the law. Okay, fair enough. You may be the 9th questioner.
And again, also, the governor doesn't look at that questioner and say, well, that's a question that left-wing media like to get out. Close-ended. Are you concerned? Yes or no? Are you confident? Yes or no? Well, the left-wing media asks me these questions all the time. No, he of course. It's fascinating to watch this, especially firsthand, and then go back and watch some of it in replay.
Of the same thing, and that's fair. I still believe that as everybody that voted on the law and voted for it, that this is not only a legal undertaking, an appropriate undertaking to keep and safeguard the people of the state of Illinois, but a constitutional one too.
Governor, regardless of what the JCAR rules say now and what they could say by the 16th, we know that when people register their firearms on the state police website that are deemed assault weapons, obviously, like you've said before, we don't know of the 2.4 million people who have guns, who have assault weapons. Some people have FOIA cards, don't have any guns at all. But
that's right.
The percentage of people who've registered, though, it really hasn't changed much. I guess the concern is that you have this law in place, and
the percentage has changed a lot. It's gone up 50% just in the last 2 or 3 weeks. The number of people that have registered their assault weapons.
He's not being dishonest there. It has doubled. The number of people who've registered firearms in the state of Illinois has doubled in a few weeks. It went from like 3,000 to 6,000. Right, I'm looking at the latest numbers right now on the Illinois State Police website. It hasn't changed since earlier this week when we checked it. So it's still at 0.25% of total FOID card holders. All right, so 6,100 of 2.4 million. That's 0.25%. The governor's correct that it did double from the previous couple of weeks, where it went from 0.08 or whatever to now 0.25. I think is the actual percentage of FOID card holders. So the governor's not being dishonest when he says that, but it's still less than 0.5% of total FOID card holders have registered firearms. So again, back to the governor.
I have concerns that more people who own assault weapons in this state are just going to ignore the law, and that there could be a lot out there
are you
floating
concerned
after
question.
January 1st when the law is in place.
Of course, I'm concerned when people choose not to follow the law.
Okay.
But let's be clear, this law is intended to keep people safe across the state. It will, and the truth is that we have so much, frankly, to celebrate about the fact that Illinois is a safer state than many others. We're only the 9th state to pass an assault weapons ban. There's been a 10th since then, and I believe this will continue to grow across the 50 states. Whether it'll reach every state, maybe not, but ultimately there needs to be a federal assault weapons ban, and I favor that.
Governor going on, and taking a variety of different other questions about energy policy, about the non-citizen issue in Chicago, but I was able to get another question in, and again, just sitting back, analyzing, a Q&A with the governor, the questions that some have asked of, are you confident? Are you concerned? Are you confident? Yes or no type questions. One question I've had just seared in my head for a while is, why register? This is not a closed-ended yes or no question. This is an open-ended question. When you ask somebody why, they can't just say yes or no, right? When you ask somebody why, it really is just a straight line to explain yourself. So that's one of the questions that I had is, why is this registry necessary? Here's the governor. Man, hold on a second. There you go.
On the registry, why have a registry of these firearms?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand, because what you want to do is prevent people from purchasing assault weapons in the state, and you want to make sure that you know where those very, very deadly weapons are, who owns them, when and if a crime is committed with one of them.
So if you haven't seen the entirety of the Q&A there, at least when it comes to the questions about the gun and magazine ban, you can go watch it without me interjecting into it. It's on my YouTube channel. Just search Bishop on Air, and we can connect that way. So a lot's going to happen still in these next 2 weeks before we get to that January 1st deadline, but clearly still some confusion. I mean, even the governor saying that people are registering automatic firearms. While they might be doing that, this isn't a automatic firearm ban. This is a ban on semi-automatic firearms. People are, the governor says, registering magazines. That's not required by law. While magazines over certain capacities are banned, state police have clearly said that you don't have to register your magazines. And where people are going to register, you have to do it online or go to one of 4 kiosks around the states. And if you don't have the internet, I guess go to a school or a library or something the governor suggests. So there you go. The latest when it comes to Illinois' gun ban and registry. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me each and every weekday morning. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell.